Hello folks, Jason Chrisman, JC's Bees, a Central Ohio beekeeper. Today is February 19th, 2025. We're sitting at about 0 degrees this morning. We've been there all week long and we're going to continue that, those low temperatures until this weekend. I don't think we're going to see above 20 during the day until then, so looking forward to the weekend. In my last video, I discussed the recent honeybee die-off, or colony collapse disorder. In that video, I suggested that maybe the bird flu had something to do with this die-off. And I made that assessment by asking Google a few questions, and it actually showed that the bird flu was present in the United States when we had these colony collapse problems. So it seemed like a logical idea to share the theory with everybody. Some of you thought this was an interesting theory. Others thought I was a crazy loon. Some offered their advice or insight as they had more of a scientific background than I do. And then there was some that thought that the pollinator problem was due to something called contrails or chemtrails. And after just a little bit of research, I found that that's mainly water vapor, and I couldn't really find any solid evidence to prove otherwise. And I have a little bit of logic here. If planes have been flying for what, 100 years? Wouldn't we see pollinator problems every single year? To me, I'm not so sure that these contrails or chemtrails have anything to do with the recent pollinator collapse, but I wouldn't rule it out. Maybe more research does need to be put into it. Today what I'd like to do is share what I've learned over the last week. I've got a lot of insight, a lot of knowledge gained, and I'm going to share some of that with you today. The first thing I've learned is as far as the bees getting the bird flu, and I'm going to make this as simple as it was put to me. Birds, unlike bees, have lungs and a respiratory system. Honeybees do not have that. So for that reason, it is impossible for the bees to get the bird flu. That said, now here's something interesting. If a honeybee lands in a place where a bird that was infected defecated or whatever it may be, say they both share a mud puddle and the bird defecates there, and the bee lands right in those pathogens, it can carry them on its feet to wherever it lands. Now, from the way I understand it, those pathogens die once that area dries, and the spread of it completely stops once the bee's feet dry. So no more pathogen carrying around or spreading at that time. So I thought that was really interesting. And if you remember back to my reference last week when I asked Google, can bees get the bird flu? And the response I got was, the bird flu can affect honeybees and the two can spread the viruses to each other. So if you put that with the explanation I gave you of the bees spreading the pathogens on its feet when they are wet, then that kind of makes a little bit of sense. As far as the bees actually getting the bird flu, everybody I'm talking to says that is not possible. So until it's officially rolled out by colleges and researchers and scientists, I guess we wait and see and hope for the best. So over the last week, I've watched several hours worth of beekeeping videos here on YouTube about this colony collapse problem that we have going on currently. And I've learned a great deal about it. And I wanted to highlight some of those features here today. And then I've taken those videos that I've watched this week and I've put them into a playlist, and I'm going to share with you at the end of this video. But first, when it comes to our bee loss, this major collapse, there's some talk going around, and here's some of the things that I'm learning. Maybe a possibility to some varroa mite treatments, in which that is possible. That's why we beekeepers switch our treatments every so often to make sure that our bees do not establish some resistance. So if they do establish some resistance, the mite levels are going to climb, which means more viruses. Another thought is the drought in 2024, and that would have affected a lot of the bees' nutrition. Did they have proper nutrition going into the winter months? I know in my area, we were lacking somewhere around 15 inches of rain for the year. It got to be extremely dry and crispy. And there's one more thing that comes to mind. You know, much of the South, they've experienced a cold winter. That's not normal. And a lot of these commercial bees are stored in southern regions. But you know, when it comes to that thought, I do have to reflect back to this playlist that I'm going to share with you today. And in this playlist, there's a video that came out in December talking about the commercial bees and the collapse. They were already noticing it in December. So for that reason, I'm not so sure that the cold weather had much play. So now we're back to nutrition and maybe mites and viruses. Let me highlight some of the things you're going to learn about, and I think it's very important for each and every one of us, beekeeper or not, to watch these videos and see what we're dealing with our food supply. This ain't good, folks. It's not good. So the first thing you're going to learn about the commercial side of beekeeping. Why it exists. Why is there commercial beekeeping? Why isn't there just beekeepers in the area pollinating crops? Well, for one, there's not enough bees. So therefore, they have to be trucked. So you're going to learn in these videos how commercial beekeeping works. You're going to learn what a broker is. You're going to learn how pesticides are deemed to be bee safe, in which I was not impressed with what I heard about this test. You're going to learn about the ELAP program, and I want to highlight Brian Kopler, I believe that's his last name. If I messed it up, Brian, I apologize, of Castle Hives, just did a great video on small-time hobbyist beekeeping, and how is beekeepers going to afford to stay in the hobby if they have to buy new bees all the time? Beekeeping as a hobby is already expensive. To think that you have to buy bees every year, that just seems impossible. I think of the beef farmer that I am. If we had to go buy new cows every year because they up and died or they ran away, I probably would think real hard about keeping cows, raising cows. There we go. I'm a beef keeper. It's a beef keeper, folks. That's bees and cattle. So what I'm reflecting to with the ELAP program and Brian's video, the ELAP program is a program that steps in when you lose your colonies. They will reimburse you to go buy new bees. So from what I gather from these videos that I'm going to share, there's a lot of hoops to jump through if you participate in that. But, you know, if you're losing your colonies, you know, we can't have something that's like playing the lottery. You need to be able to win every year. That is your goal, right? You want your bees to win. You want to make a few bucks with honey or whatever it is. You want to be able to succeed. And right now, that's kind of tricky. You're also going to learn what is colony collapse disorder. And this is a big one. It's not really defined as any one thing. It's pesticides, it's drought, which affects nutrition, it's mites, which cause viruses. It's all of those wrapped up in one. And you're going to see that spoken about in these videos. Now, all of these videos are kind of in a conference form. There's a few different people talking, commercial beekeepers, and these are not my videos. This is BeFit Beekeeping. This is Frederick Dunn and a pollinator channel from Oklahoma State University. And really, that one kind of shocked me because they were talking about this news in this video, and it was released in December. So it seems like here in the last month, this news has just arose and became real broad, and all the beekeepers are talking about it. But it really surprised me that this hasn't already arose back in December. There's very few views on this video, and I thought it was crafted very well, and I learned a great deal from all of them in this playlist. So if you're worried about our food supply, if you're worried about our pollinators, watch these videos, ask questions, and let's let this be known. Have you noticed that there's still nothing in the big media? I haven't seen one thing in the news about a shortage of bees. We're not being loud enough yet. We need to be loud. So my thoughts. There's a shortage of bees. I realize why we have commercial beekeepers and why they are trucked all around. But we're dealing with our food supply. I remember as a kid, you'd drive around or ride around with your parents, your grandparents, whatever it may be, and you'd see beehives everywhere. Every farm had one. And I think what happened is bees became harder to keep. They became unpredictable. They became livestock that you had to buy new of every year. And for that reason, they faded from the farmlands. And that's not a good thing. I think if maybe, I mentioned I have cattle. I'm an organic, regenerative grazer. We lease close to 200 acres, and I've got a cow-calf herd, and I graze them around the farm in a rotational grazing pattern. I'll take a 20-acre pasture, and I'll break it down into 1-acre increments using something called poly braid and poly stakes. This is all electric, and I'll break it down into 1-acre lots, and every day I'll move the cow herd to a new acre. Now what this does is it allows time for the grass to rejuvenate in those little cubicles quicker than giving them the whole pasture for a couple of days and then moving them. Because see, when you do that, then you have to wait, 40 days for that whole pasture to come back and be ready to be grazed again. As where with the breaking it down into smaller sections and grazing it, you're concentrating where you put the manure, which is fertilizer, and you're also controlling the grass growth, and you're promoting the sun to get down in and do its thing. So not only does this regenerative grazing help the grazers, it helps the soil, it builds wildlife, it builds the ecosystem. We promote areas for pollinators. We don't use sprays and chemicals. What grows is what we've got to work with. And whether we need to change what's in our soil by putting more impact from the cattle or our livestock on the land to increase the fertility, well then that's what we need to do. We don't need to spray chemicals to change the biology of the soil. And that is our goal, to use the livestock to better the farm. It's a beautiful, beautiful relationship. And I would love to see an approach like this become more widespread once we figure out what's killing our bees in the bee industry. I would love to see each state have enough bees to pollinate their own crops. Wouldn't that be the ultimate goal? No more trucking bees from state to state. Maybe we only truck them from county to county. Could you imagine? So until we get to that point, we've got to figure out what's going on with our pollinators. And I think if we all do our part and get enough people to pay attention, maybe this time we can actually figure out what caused colony collapse disorder. Because if you remember the last time, after we kind of got past it, there wasn't any more talk about it. Probably the funds went elsewhere. So not a good thing, folks, not a good thing. So hey folks, I appreciate you. I hope you gained something from this video, and if you thought I was trying to throw some riffraff, some noise pollution, what was it? No reason to speculate. I wasn't speculating. I was just throwing out a theory that made sense to me, and maybe I should have stepped back and said, you know what, YouTube's really not the place to do that. But that's not what I did. I shared it with you, and I got feedback. I guess that's a good thing, right? So hey, y'all take care. Let's be nice to each other. Let's pull together as beekeepers, as pollinators, and let's get this figured out. So if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. If you want to see me again and you haven't yet, please click that subscribe button and make sure you click the little bell so you can be notified every time a new video comes out. And hey, have a great day, a great evening, a great whatever it is for you. Have a good one. Thanks for watching. Take care.